Hello, and you are most welcome to Health Matters on Channels Television. We are so glad you could join us today. I am Mary Alale Yusuf. Ear and hearing problems are quite common and affect people of all ages. Statistics from the World Health Organization indicate that by 2050, over 700 million people worldwide are expected to need ear and hearing care unless efforts are stepped up in prevention, diagnosis, and treatment. Over 1 billion young adults are at risk of permanent, avoidable hearing loss due to unsafe listening practices. The WHO says over 60% of ear and hearing problems can be identified and addressed at primary care facilities. The body has launched the Primary Ear and Hearing Training Manual to empower primary healthcare centers, lend support to people with these challenges. Joining me for this discussion is a professor of Otolaryngology at the College of Health Sciences, University of Abuja. Professor Titus Ibekwe is an ear, nose, and throat surgeon at the University of Abuja Teaching Hospital, president of the Foundation of the Sick, and a health policy and management specialist. He joins us from our Abuja studio. You're welcome to the show, Prof.
Thank you so much, Mary. It's good to be here again.
It's great to see you. And I know that the first thing you will tell me is that ear and hearing care has to start from infancy. Or am I not right?
You're very correct.
And so what do they do to the infant when he's born? What kind of tests do they run on an infant?
Yeah, you see, the hearing is a very important component of life, and it's particularly very important for the newborn. It helps in activation of what we call cognitive functions, which is the embodiment of the functions needed for a child to develop very well, both in the level of mentation of the child, ability to articulate and coordinate well, even vision and speech. All these things are enrolled and they're meshed together. And that is why it's very important to be sure that a newborn baby's hearing is adequate so that these very important functions shall develop within the shortest possible time. And the first 1 year is very critical because beyond 1 year, if a child could not hear, the part of the brain that's observed for that function starts undergoing what we call plasticity, which means the functions start going down, winding down, because it's what you can hear and program that you will be able to reproduce. And to that end, as part of the ear and healthcare policy worldwide, it is expected that every newborn child should be screened for hearing before leaving the hospital or discharged with the mother, so that early diagnosis could be made and every effort towards correction of the defect within this critical period is achieved.
Okay, I never really thought of hearing care as a primary healthcare function, but you know, that's what Dr. Tedros is talking about. And there's this manual that they've launched now for primary healthcare practitioners to actually get in more on the game of hearing and ear care. If you had the chance, what would be your most important inputs in this manual, if you had the chance to put something in there?
Yes, it's a holistic manual. And how are you sure that I wasn't part of it?
That's true.
So it's based on input from experts worldwide that the manual came to being, just as was the case in 2018 when we championed the cause of what we call the ear health care policy. You know, WHO projected that, and we championed it here in Nigeria, and we're able to pass on that policy. So it's a policy in Nigeria today. You know, healthcare is a holistic thing and should not be treated in isolation. And research over time will help to reveal the areas that you need to make more input in order to be able to come out with a more robust report or result. And that is why the primary healthcare, which is the bedrock of healthcare services, has been identified. That this part of health, which is ear and healthcare, should be integrated at that level so that we'll be able to easily get down to how to reach people, how to reach areas of the different parts of the world, especially the hinterlands. We know that within every ward or within every community, at least you will have one, healthcare center that is there under primary healthcare. So that becomes one of the easiest assets to be able to get this down, to the grassroots, to people that really needs it, so that it won't start and end with the elites. So that's the brain behind that, and is an plausible measure. All of us, experts in this field across the globe, accepted that and agreed that it should be. And it's a manual that should be embraced, and the practice is one that should also be championed by everyone.
The theme for this year is ear and hearing care for all. We've heard about hearing loss, being hard of hearing, but what's the ear care part? What are the other problems that are common to the ear apart from hearing loss?
Okay, well, the ear observes, we say, two basic functions. Okay, it's unusual for us to have a gigantic ear around us while having this type of program.
Oh, thank you for bringing that ear. I love it.
For a lot of people, they refer to this as the ear, which is the pinna. But the ear goes beyond the pinna. Pinna is just one of the apparatus that collects sound from the environment.
That's the flap that we see.
So basically, beyond hearing, the ear also observes for balance, because within the ear you have two basic organs: the vestibular organ, which observes for balance, and then the cochlear organ or the cochlear system. We call the two cochleovestibular system, all embedded within the ear. So if any part of that develops any form of problem, then either you come down with hearing loss of different types. We can have conductive hearing loss. Just as we mentioned earlier that this pinna is part of a conductive apparatus, then the channel, which people usually insert cotton buds to clean, we're here to proclaim that cotton bud is out of bound for the ear, is one of the major causes of the problems. So the ear needs no cleaning. So that part, which is the external auditory canal, collects the sound and now transmits up to the level of the tympanic membrane or the eardrum, which starts vibrates and passes on the sound, through the three tiny bones in the ear. From here, it moves on to the part where it is now converted from, hitherto sound mechanical to electrical energy. So that part where it's converted to electrical energy that conducts all the way up to the brain is the sensory part, or the neural part. And that is why we can talk of conductive hearing loss if the apparatus, one of those conductive apparatus, has problems, okay? Or sensorineural hearing loss if the part of the ear that conducts sound through here, upward to the brain, develop problems. Sometimes these two can exist. So you have what we call mixed hearing loss. So that is it. Whereas the one that we can see up here, the semicircular canals and their components are the one that's observed for, for balance. So that's how the ear is wired. A very important organ for each and every one of us. And it has to be preserved. So noise is another problem, and which is why we're also preaching against the use of this. If you remember, when you are doing an intro to this program, you mentioned that about 1 billion of young adults, that's the youth, they are prone to this preventable hearing loss, which is primarily due to habit. This is one of the problems, noise. And sometimes they create this noise milieu for themselves. They're using this either the earbuds or the one we call the earpiece, which completely occludes the canal. Okay. And some of them will wear this from morning to night, thereby exposing themselves to excessive noise and damage to what we call the hair cells, especially the external hair cells, which is the organelle that is able to convert this energy that we're talking of.
Did you say hair cells?
Sound from mechanical, then eventually to electrical. So once they're damaged...
Did you say hair cells? Sorry to interrupt.
The chances of cure is very, very remote here. So rather, this type, which is used in your studio, that is called the headphone, is safer. All right? It's safer because it doesn't completely occlude the canal. The chances that the ambient noise or ambient sound, the sound in the environment, will compete with what is going into the ear is very high here, thereby reducing the volume of eventual summation that gets to the ear. Unlike this, that delivers almost 100%. So this is safer, although not as fashionable as this, and it should be used intermittently, not for a very long time. And those who are in noisy environment, say a workplace, is another place that we must look into. And that is where even the United Nations Charter, the Labour Act, all recognize this, that within a noisy environment, we should be able to measure the environmental noise. Once it's up to 80, 85 decibel, we know that people around there, they run the risk of developing this noise-induced hearing loss.
Let me just cut you.
Measures must be taken.
Let me just ask you quickly. What would you say to headsets with noise cancellation effects? They now have these headsets, the second one you showed, which cancels, noise that is around you, so that one could lower the sound that is entering into their ears. What would you say about that?
Mary, cancellation of noise around you is even more dangerous. That's what I'm saying. The ambient noise, that's because the environment is, you can never get it completely quiet. So that environmental noise, people moving around, shuffling their feet, discussing, carrying on activities, competes with this, what we are trying to deliver through either the headset or through the earpod or whichever, But if you're able to cancel the environmental noise completely, so nothing competes with the one that is coming in through your primary source. Everything is delivered into the ear. Let's not get it twisted. So it is not safe, listening with any of these devices for a prolonged period. If it is used intermittently, beautiful. Just as I was saying regarding work environment, that is the reason that Labour Act stipulates that if you're working in such an environment, you must use, protective ear sets, ear muffles to protect your ear, and at the same time, you must not work beyond 8 hours in such an environment. Such an environment must be a shift work period. So some people work for 8 hours, another set will come, the other set will come and complete the 24 hours. Reason being that you need minimum of 16 hours for the primary damages that is caused on these hair cells for it to recover before you start work the next day.
It's at this point...
threshold shift. Very important.
Okay, it's at this point I've got to call for a break. When we come back, we continue this interesting conversation. Please stay with us. We're coming back in a moment. Welcome back. It's Health Matters, and the topic is ear and hearing care. We have Professor Titus Ibekwe with us, and we have this line, 0808-054-2233, if you want to call with a question about the ears, or you can tweet at CTV_Mary A, or send me email to moalale@channelstv.com while we continue the conversation. Prof, we were talking about damage to hair cells. Does that mean that every time you hear and you listen, hair cells are damaged? Can't you carry out, go through life without damaging those precious cells?
Yes, that does not necessarily mean they are put under stress, all right? That may be a better word. They are put under stress, and we know that if this stress continues over time, then that may lead to permanent damage. And that stress they are put over, if you give them 16 hours within the day, they have the ability to, recover fully and get ready for the next day. That's why such an environment, which I have already described, work environment that is noisy and has been tested and seen to be up to that threshold of 80 to 85 decibel. So beyond wearing ear muffles to protect every worker within such an environment, so such a worker must not exceed 8 hours to give room for that minimum of 16 hours that is needed for the precious hair cells to recover fully as against next day's activity. If you fail to do this and they're not given enough time to recover, then it will lead to permanent damage. And that is what we call noise-induced hearing loss, which is a type of sensorineural hearing loss. And as I said, rehabilitation is extremely difficult here.
Okay, we're having a call from Ladi in Kaduna. Hello, Ladi. What's your question? Are you there, Ladi? Okay, when we establish contact properly, then we'll talk to Ladi. Prof, since we're talking about noise here, let's talk about noise I believe is even worse than the work environment. And we are always in these places. These are parties. The noise is so loud. They feel that if the music is not pounding, then you're not enjoying yourself. What are the short and long-term consequences of such noise? Because people stay in these noisy places thinking, I can walk out, this is my friend, or this is my relative, or whatever. But that noise, let me describe it to you. It's so loud. On a particular occasion, I wanted to run out. I actually left, but my ears were still beating. I haven't had that kind of sensation before. They kept beating. It was like something was, like a drum was beating in my ears. So what, would that do? And what's your advice?
Is very common among us because our society is one that is enmeshed in a lot of socio-cultural integration and always trying to, socialize, mingle together, and show solidarity. But it should not be shown to the detriment of your own health, and that is what we're trying to say here. Such situations, a place you walk into and your system will tell you that this sound, the level of the noise emanating from here is disturbing, and you step out, you still keep on hearing some sort of ringing in your ear, is a red flag. And what this portends is that there is a high chance of such a person that is within such an environment developing the noise-induced hearing loss that we talked about, especially those who are exposed to this over and over again. Let it be said that extremely loud sounds, you may not need to be exposed over hours for it to lead to this hearing loss. In fact, a flash of an extremely loud sound can actually lead to this hearing loss that
like
we're
an
talking
explosion,
about,
right?
And beyond hearing loss, it is worthy of note that excessive noise has been shown to aggravate high blood pressure. In fact, those who are prone to hypertension, excessive exposure to noise accelerates that up to the level that we've been able to estimate the level of millimeter mercury rise, okay, in your blood pressure, the systolic blood pressure, if you're exposed to a certain level of loudness of sound. And those individuals who have what we call hyperlipidemia, that is to say the level of their, the fat in their system circulating is very high, Such people are also very prone when they're exposed to this high level of sound, to even throwing embolus and developing what we call stroke. You can see that
Prof, let's
noise
quickly
and
get
hearing
this
loss
call.
is just one thing that everybody
Sorry
knows.
to cut you short, sir. Let's quickly get this call from Odoayo in Ekiti. Hello, Odoayo. What's your question?
Yeah, good afternoon. Please.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, I want to find out, are there some drugs that can prompt somebody to hearing loss?
Okay, that's a good one. Thank you, Odoayo. Prof, Odoayo is asking, are there drugs that can prompt hearing loss?
Hearing loss, right? Very correct. We call them ototoxic drugs. Beyond noise, there are a lot of things, but we're just moving and he has preempted us. We call these ototoxic drugs. Are drugs that has been researched upon and found to have the ability to predispose to hearing loss. They're there and they're bound. I'll give some examples, but I won't mention specific names of drugs, but I'll just mention the groups that they belong to. Aminoglycoside group of drugs, okay? They're highly incriminated. It is commonly used in management of infections and especially in children who have septicemia. There is a variety of that is commonly used. These are known to lead to hearing loss. And in some situations, exposure to just a shot of this drug, especially for those that have certain genetic predisposition, okay? MRNR1 deficiency, within the gene.
Prof, let's not go into that now
just
because
one dose.
We could continue for the next 30 minutes and we're out of time. But I have to thank you for coming and giving us all this information. And I know that there's a lot more in there, so we'll be having this meeting, a continuation of this meeting at some other point. Thank you so much, Odoayo, and thank you, Ladi, for calling in. I am Mary Alale Yusuf. Have a great day.